Alright, so what's going on, guys? I just got back from the movie theater, so I thought I'd review a movie for once instead of an anime. Don't worry, this won't be a regular trend. I will still be reviewing anime in the future, and that will be the primary focus of this channel. But I thought, I don't go to the movies that often, and since this is a relatively fresh movie, that being the Lion King remake 2019, I figured I'd get my initial thoughts on it and kind of review it for you guys, tell you what I liked, what I didn't like, and just kind of go over some of the main facets of the movie. So with that said, why don't we just get right into it? Let me say this first and foremost. If you're expecting any sort of a deviation, a different take, different perspectives from different characters, something different in general about this movie, you would be sadly mistaken. You're not going to get any sort of variations on the original story. This is probably, it's so damn close to the original. It's probably about 90% the original story. It's 90% verbatim the original story, which I get it. There's a sizable audience that enjoys that sort of thing. They like seeing improved animation for their old classics. So, that maybe that appeals to a certain segment of the audience. But very quickly throughout the movie, I'd say within like 15 to 20 minutes, I was getting to the point where I was already getting bored. I'm like, oh, okay, so this is going to happen next. This is when they're going to play the I Can't Wait to Be King song. This is going to be the Be Prepared song. So it was like you knew what was going to happen. And if you're any kind of like a sports fan or an avid moviegoer in general, if you know the end result, it's not as entertaining as it would be if you didn't know the end result. So I was kind of expecting maybe a few twists and turns here or there. They could have, maybe given a little perspective on Scar's backstory as to why he's an evil lion and why he hates Mufasa, his brother. Maybe they could have gone into maybe their childhood and they could have explored that a little bit. Maybe they could have a little more investigation into the female lions and how Scar subjugated them during the period when Simba was hanging out with Timon and Pumbaa, because a lot of that story is kind of just glossed over. In the original version it's glossed over, but that was original. That was how the story was at that time. Now, maybe it would have been more prudent for the studio to say, hey, yes, let's give Simba and Pumbaa and Timon some airtime, some screen time, because they're the vital components of the story. But let's go a little more into the female lions that are being subjugated under Scar. Let's go a little more into the hyenas, how they're exploiting the Pride Lands and how they're killing all the animals and how they're taking up all the resources for themselves, and it's getting to be a barren, dry land that has no bounty or vitality left. It's just, here's the Pride Lands, it's beautiful, all the animals respect the lions that are in charge, it's lush, it's green, it's bountiful, it's got lots of water and bugs and resources, and then it's just like, okay, let's just skip to the point where Simba's an adult and now it's all barren. Again, for the original movie, that's fine. I don't mind. That's how the original story was, and it was innovative and creative. But this time around, you got to show a little more versatility. You can't just tell the same story with improved animation and quote-unquote improved voice acting, which I feel like, I read some of the critics' reviews on this, and some of them are saying, well, you got the improved voice acting this time around. A lot of the critics are harsh on the movie, so that should be noted, but a lot of them are saying, well, the one bright spot is you got the improved voice acting, so that's one thing to look forward to, and then you got the improved animation. And I don't know about that. There's a lot of big names in terms of the main cast that's doing the voices. I've got Donald Glover, Seth Rogen, Beyonce. They brought back James Earl Jones again, but I don't know if it's that much better. You got a lot of name recognition, but I don't think it's better. I prefer the original version in terms of the voice acting. Zazu was played by Rowan Atkinson, who was, as many of you probably already know, he does Mr. Bean and Johnny English. I thought he did a lot better with Zazu. Scar was played by Jeremy Irons, who's been in a variety of different features. He played Alfred in Justice League. Whoopi Goldberg was in the original movie. She played Shenzi, who's the head hyena. And even the voice actors for the original Timon and Pumbaa, I don't know their names, but I felt like they had a lot more vitality. I felt like they had a lot more vigor and interest in the role. Seth Rogen is just... he is who he is at this point. I honestly don't see what people see in this guy as a voice. He's been doing a lot of voice acting as of late. I believe he was Mantis in Kung Fu Panda. He obviously was in Sausage Party, which was pretty raunchy. And then I think he's also done some work in The Simpsons as well. But in general, I mean, I don't want to make this a Seth Rogen rant, but I guess I will. I just don't find the guy to be particularly funny whatsoever. I haven't really watched one of his movies and I've said, damn, that guy is funny as hell. Or, you know, just laughing my ass off or squeezing my sides because, you know, it hurts because I'm laughing so much. He's been in a lot of movies and he's doing a lot more serious work, but he's always got that comedic undertone. And I can't even think of one movie where you know, there was that one movie, though, where he was really good. I mean, he just stole the show, and he was just hilarious. I can't think of one. So, I mean, making him Pumbaa, I guess, was an alright decision, but it's not like he's going to stick out in my mind. He had a few jokes that I chuckled at, but, you know, again, that's kind of his career in general, is a bunch of chuckling, but nothing very memorable. I feel like the voice acting cast in general was pretty weak, actually. A lot of big names, but no one that really had a performance that you're going to say, wow, that was just incredible. So, yeah, that was a miss. The animation is spectacular, but in terms of the animation itself, they tried to make everything hyper-realistic. So when you're watching the movie, there's going to be points where you're going to be saying to yourself, is this an animated feature or is this National Geographic? And the reason this is important is that because it's so realistic, a lot of the characters' expressions and faces, it's almost hard to tell what they're thinking. If you put this movie on mute and you were just reading, or even if you weren't reading the subtitles, let's just say you were just watching the visuals across the screen, you wouldn't be able to tell what was happening, really. You could see the actions, but you wouldn't be able to tell based on facial expressions what someone was thinking or feeling or what they were planning to do. If you watch the original Lion King from 1994, you know what people are feeling. You could see the anger and the grimace and the vitriol in Scar's face. Like, you could tell this guy is a bad dude. In the Be Prepared song, you could see how maniacal he was and cunning and sadistic, and how lockstep the hyenas were and how deranged they were. You know, they tried to make the hyenas look deranged and crazy and loony, but you just never really got it to that full effect. And that was the case for all the characters. Scar never really came off as being super evil as he did in the first film. Timon and Pumbaa never really came off as happy-go-lucky, loony, jovial, joking. Simba never really comes where he comes into his own as the eventual king. And back to being hyper-realistic and hyper-realism, if you watch the original movie, like, when they played the And I Can't Just Wait to Be King song, there were a lot of color changes. There were a lot of different expressions on their faces, and you just didn't get that in this movie. So they took a movie that was really playful and featured seamless songs that worked well with the color palettes and the messages that they were trying to convey. But here it was just all kind of brown and gray and dreary in a way. Just a lot of for example, one of my biggest disappointments with the 2019 version was the Be Prepared song. I remember in the original how you had puffs of green smoke coming out of the ground. Scar had a maniacal smile on his face that stretched from ear to ear. You had the hyenas that looked deranged and were chewing on bones and were acquiesced to every one of Scar's demands. But, in the new version, it was just there was no life to it. And another thing, too, is Scar's look in general you could see that he looked kind of unkept and maybe a little dirty, and you got that with the original version, but much better. Like, his fur was kind of, there was a nice contrast between his fur. Like, his hair was more black, and this one, it almost looked kind of grayish, like he was old, and the old one, it looked like he had a lot more vitality. And in the Be Prepared song too, it ends with him rising on the mountaintop, and there's smoke and fire and embers, and there's skeletons in the background that hyenas are whipping around with their mouths. Man, it was just, it was surrealistic. It was not something that you would say, well, that's something that would happen in real life, but it really emphasized how they were evil and how wicked their plot was to murder Mufasa and eventually try to murder his son Simba as well, which didn't work, but you just didn't get that whatsoever. And the injection of the songs into a hyper-realistic story, it didn't fit too well to me. And, I'm not saying that they probably should have got rid of them altogether, but maybe they should have. I don't know, it just didn't feel like it was it didn't feel homogenous to the aesthetic that they were trying to convey with this movie. So yeah, it was a letdown. I mean, I'm sure most of you are going to see it anyway, but just kind of a little inside information. When I went to the movie theater to see this thing, now this thing just got released last week Friday, and this is Tuesday, so just a couple days afterwards, I don't even think half of the movie theater was full. So, I mean, I know a lot of reviews have come out already saying that the movie's kind of a letdown, so maybe that's deterring a large cohort of people who are saying, well, I'll just wait till Netflix gets it, or that Disney Netflix that's coming out in November, Disney Plus, I believe it's called. Get it for cheaper there rather than spend, an untold amount of money for the tickets and the popcorn and the soda and all that, or all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's probably a wise decision to wait for this one to come to DVD or Netflix or any sort of other streaming service. And a big theme with the movie, they were trying to play on the circle of life, which, was a big theme in the original movie. But I feel like that's apt for describing Disney's new agenda of releasing these remakes of old tales that they've already told. They're doing it with The Jungle Book, Dumbo, Aladdin, Maleficent. Maleficent's actually coming out with a second movie, which could be interesting because that looks like it's going to be Maleficent, at least, they're taking a different perspective on that story. They're taking an evil person and they're making her out to be a sympathetic case, and they're saying, hey, look, she's evil, but she has justifiable reasons for feeling that way, which is what they could have done with Scar in this movie. Like I said in the beginning, they could have shown Scar and Mufasa as children, and maybe they could have shown like an incident or a scenario that happened during their childhood that led him to be vengeful against Mufasa and his children and the Pride Lands. But they didn't really do that. They just made him be the same vile character that he was in the original story, and they didn't really expand upon that. And so, I mean, getting back to that whole circle of life, circling back to that assertion, I feel like the whole taking old tales and improving the animation and quote-unquote the voice quality is just a whole circle of life for Disney. Let's not put any thought into these movies. Let's not put any sort of innovation or nuance or a different spin. Let's just take an old classic, improve the animation, improve the voice acting, and make money. And do it again. And do it again with Aladdin. Do it again with Dumbo. Do it again with Lion King. Do it again with Maleficent. Even though Maleficent did have a different take, do it again with Cinderella. I want to see original Disney movies. I want to see original movies in general. I don't want to see remakes of the old classics. And if I do want to see a remake of the old classic, I want to see different perspectives. I want to see an injection of originality. Even if you change the story, maybe they could have, maybe they could have done something where, one of the female lions was the bad guy this time around. Or, I get it. They don't want to anger the people who loved the classic and are like, well, you can't change it. Why did you have to ruin it? But gotta do something different. Because, like I said, by that 15-20 minute mark, I was already like, they're just doing the original story verbatim at this point? I mean, come on. It was a letdown. Was it money well spent? Sure. I mean, anytime you go to the movies in this hot summertime, I mean, sure, it's worth it. It was a nice time passer, but it wasn't good by any stretch of the imagination, and it was bad. Animation-wise was great, but everything else was pretty bad. That's all I really got to say on that. For anyone who does follow my channel on a regular basis, I do plan on releasing a Utena Shadow Girls Explained review, hopefully in the next couple of days here, and as well as a Death Note Abridged Episode 2. So hopefully those both will come out in the next couple of days, unless something comes up and I get distracted. But if you're going to go see the movie, I mean, go see it on a cheap night. Marcus Theaters does the $5 on Tuesdays, so that's really where you're going to get the best bang for your buck. And really, with all new movies, that's what you should do. I mean, anyone who pays full price for movies nowadays is just wasting their money. But yeah, don't pay full price for this one especially. It's definitely a low mark for Disney remakes. I hope Disney takes this as a sign of, you know what, we got to get back to what we did. If you want to make movies with CGI animation, that's fine, but make a new original movie. Do something different. Don't just make the same old crap. And the original Lion King was a fantastic movie, don't get me wrong. I love that one. I mean, I rated that 3 out of 5 stars, which if any of you know me, that's a fantastic, great rating. Just do something different. I've seen Lion King, I've seen Cinderella, I've seen Maleficent. Well, Maleficent was different. I've seen Dumbo, I've seen Pinocchio, I've seen The Jungle Book. Let's tread some new territory. Let's make some new roads here. That's all I got to say on this one. Catch you on the flip side.